This is Tim.
I'm Mulele.
And this is Critiquing Comics. Welcome to Critiquing Comics. This is Tim with Mulele in Tokyo on a getting to be kind of muggy outside, kind of warm day. How's everything going with you?
Not too many complaints. Everything's going well. Not enough time in the day to do all the things I need to do, but you know how it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so we've got kind of a queue that we're digging into here. This time we're talking about a comic called Warhammer 40,000 Dawn of War 3, Issue 1. So it's based on a video game of the same name, Warhammer 40,000 Dawn of War 3, which I'm not familiar with at all. And I wondered if that was making it a little hard for me to grasp what was going on in this comic, or if it was the comic's fault itself that I wasn't. After I read it a couple times, I was kind of getting what was going on. Although, well, as we were discussing before we started, it also feels like this PDF that they sent us skips a couple pages at the beginning. Mm. It says that it's page 5 at the beginning. Well, the cover was there was a graphic in the email. I saw the cover there, but yeah, I mean, we start off with this full page panel of a battle scene, which, could be the beginning, but I don't know. I guess I think we've seen these comics based on games before, and I always feel like it's a little difficult to, what do I want to say? They tend to feel kind of shallow because there's not much characterization of these characters because they're out of a game where their characters are, as far as I know anyway, I'm not a gamer, but they strike me as kind of one-dimensional. But also, it's like I didn't feel like we got a very good introduction to these characters. We were just kind of plopped in the middle of it here. I felt like there was an assumption that we were familiar with the characters and the scenario. Did you feel that way?
Well, especially when I'm looking at the PDF and it says page 5 as the first page that we get. And I kind of felt like there was a mistake with the PDF that we lost a couple of pages there. It's like, well, maybe that was just enough to solidify the reader in the story. But if it starts from this first panel, very, very weak writing. They do nothing to bring up, kind of bring the reader in. And you might be right. It may be just that there's an assumption that the reader is already in if they're buying the comic, and that's in my mind kind of lazy. None of the. So I'm going to just jump into the artwork here.
Okay. Art is by Daniel Indro. Writing is by Ryan O'Sullivan. Continue.
Sorry about that. Yeah. So the artwork is absolutely gorgeous in its designs and its attention to detail. Mm-hmm. Very painterly. It works very beautifully with the colors.
By Kevin Enhart.
Yeah, everything is top notch, except the storytelling is not really there. It seems that the artist or writer or whoever did the layout for the comic doesn't quite understand the language of comics. The big splash page is beautiful and would have made an excellent cover, but there are only 5 words on the page. A lot of artistic detail, but it seems just kind of a waste of space. And as it goes through, and we get lots of stiff poses and close-ups, and the action looks good. Each panel looks good. the panels don't work together to tell a cohesive scene, to make a cohesive scene. They are kind of disjointed and don't really convey what's happening. And then it switches around a lot. They're on the planet, then they're on the ship, then they're on the planet again.
Well, I felt like that was an attempt, and not a very good one, to do like what we often see in film, where there's a background, kind of a backstory scene that, you know, they do some voiceover on what happens next, which is this ship being launched out into space. But reading it here the first time, I'm just like, what's this ship? Where is it going? And what does that have to do with this other conversation that's going on? It just didn't communicate very well. I think that it was trying to say that this was, the conversation happened first and then the ship launched, and we see the same characters in the conversation and then in a situation where the lighting makes them look kind of red, which I assume is inside the ship, and that's supposed to be later, I guess. But I had to kind of paste it together in my mind because the comic wasn't doing it for me.
Yeah. There's a lot of back and forth, because like on page 9, they're in the ship about to get hit by a missile, and then on page 10, the first panel, they're on other ship. I should say the main ship and then the shuttle. So they're about to get hit in the shuttle, and then they flash back or switch back to the conversation that they had with their boss leader, or whatever, who's never introduced. We've got no name there.
Yeah.
And then back to the ship in the next panel. And it just seems like a great waste of space and a kind of misunderstanding between, in the difference between making, what do you call it? Sorry, I forget the English word. Help me, English. Econte.
I'm sorry.
Econte.
Econte.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
Okay. Well, anyway, fuck me. The drawings that you use to set up the shots of a film. Yeah. Sorry, I forget my film language. But it looks very much like this artist was geared towards game design, towards any of that stuff, towards movies, but not about comics. He doesn't know how to tell a story. He doesn't know how to evolve a scene. He also doesn't know how to draw facial expressions very well, because everybody's got a grimace, and that's kind of it. There's not much subtlety here. But see, this is the thing. It's really gorgeous drawing individually. Together, it doesn't make a cohesive scene, and therefore it falls down as a story. And I find myself lost in a lot of these pictures.
Oh, Econte is storyboard.
Thank you, storyboard. Yeah, he sets it up like storyboards, but it doesn't work, because with storyboards, there's an assumption of movement. In comics, there is not. There's the illusion of movement, and that's a big difference. The only place where he really tried to get the movement in is page 12. He uses a full page to show the crash landing of the shuttle, which seems to be a giant waste of space, considering how much the rest of the comic suffers because of this misappropriation of page real estate. So yeah, it's got problems there. But anyway, that's my main problem with this comic is well, aside from the flat writing, is that the artist doesn't know how to move a comic.
Yeah, and there is a lot of, after that there's several just kind of silent pages of fighting, and I mean, it's looks cool, but yeah, the story isn't really moving ahead. And then we have to kind of wrap it up in those last few pages to explain what's going to happen. But I was a little thrown off because, they're talking about this one character has. Well, at the beginning, he goes with another character into this rubble area.
Yeah.
And, well, okay, I guess I see what's going on here. Then they find the character who went with him, and he's injured.
Yeah.
And, yeah, he says that the leader character said something was calling him, and he had to go alone into this wherever. And yeah, okay, I guess I was a little thrown off because there are sort of two instances of going into the rubble. First, the two of them, and then the one is left behind, and the other one goes, but we don't have that scene.
Yeah. So it's missing stuff story-wise. It's like they are very talented in other things, but they don't quite apply here. And maybe the writer is also very good at making video game scripts. I don't know. But it just doesn't work here. I would say one last thing about the writing of the orcs. Now, I understand that they're trying to portray these orcs as vicious monsters who kill anything, and maybe it's a bit of a reach here for me to say this, but if we look at the last two pages, page 26 and 25, which have a conversation among two orcs looking from a kind of hidden vantage point on the battle aftermath. And the English is very broken. And they seem to have a lack of grammatical nuance.
Yeah.
And they also seem to have a lack of culture. Now, I understand orcs are a very simple thing, but if we were to actually set this story on Earth, where the kind of hyper-religious warriors, could be called crusaders, traveling to another land to fight the indigenous population, having these orcs speak in a broken English and be devoid of culture smacks of kind of imperialist racism. And I found it kind of offensive just going through that thought process. And maybe I am kind of overreaching there, but I just found it to be lazy at best, uninteresting at worst, actually offensive at worst, and uninteresting in the middle.
Yeah, kind of hackneyed. I mean, that's very kind of familiar from many other things that have gone ahead of it.
Well, what's his name? John Carter of Mars. That was Edgar Rice Burroughs, right?
Maybe.
Who also wrote Tarzan.
Yeah.
And in fact, it's the same story. White guy goes to another place and becomes king of the jungle. And looking at I didn't read the story of Tarzan or the story of John Carter, but looking at the films, which I'm assuming have some of the source material still intact, the way the people in the new land are treated is exactly the same. The Martian in John Carter of Mars are treated like the Africans in Tarzan. Primitive, somewhat simple-minded people who are in awe of the fact that this person exists at all. And looking at that kind of thing, and then seeing that same ideology here, I just thought, oh, for fuck's sake, why? I would say this comic is a bit of a poison pill, and I'm not digging it. But it was constructed using talented people. I wish they had been used better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't have much more to say about this. I should mention it's published by Titan Comics, yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't have anything else to say about this either. I went kind of deep and hard on it, but yeah. You've got this much skill, do something more interesting. Yeah. But it's just after a paycheck. Well, good luck. You're not going to have my money, but I'm sure you'll have the company's money. Titan will gladly pay you for this.
Okay, so we're doing 2 comics this time. Our next one is called Rocket to Pluto, and this was sent to us by Joseph Hewitt, who we met at Kaigai Manga Festa here in Tokyo last fall. And I'm pretty sure we talked about something else of his. I'm blanking on what it was now, but I think we did cover whatever comic it was that I picked up from him back then.
Sorry, when you say we met him, do you mean the royal we or you and I actually?
Well, I mean, I interviewed him for the podcast.
Okay, but I was not there.
Or maybe I mean me and the listeners.
I see. Okay.
Anyway, so he sent us his latest comic, which is Rocket to Pluto. And the characters in this are sort of penguin version of what Americans know as the Power Rangers. And we see them at the beginning in their different colored costumes, and there's a whole explanation, about how originally the 3 Rangers were black, gray, and white because it was a black and white TV.
Yeah. I quite like that bit.
Yeah. And then the other colored Rangers came in. But now that page is color on the cover, but then the rest of it is black and white.
I also like that because you get this lovely color introduction, and then it switches to black and white, which kind of smacks you in the face. Like, wait a minute, what? Then why are you telling me about the colors? Anyway.
Yeah, so this is a kind of funny story where the Rangers go out into space, and they're supposed to go to Pluto and shut down this, like, what was it now? Oh, space mailbox.
Yeah.
Through which Queen Flora has been delivering monsters that then come to Earth and attack Earth. So they do go to Pluto, and they have some other adventures on the way, and then more adventures afterwards, in a 38-page PDF comic, including the cover. But I found this fairly enjoyable. What'd you think?
I found it kind of enjoyable too. It's very, very lighthearted, and there are a couple of jokes, like, for example, the first the cover and I guess it's the inside front cover being in color and explaining a bunch of stuff about the colors and the hierarchy and the whatnot, but then just dumping all of that and going to black and white comics inside. I would say the artwork is very, very simplistic. The way to tell the penguins apart is by their color, which is very easy, or by the shape of their eye visor, which is much more difficult. And so since the comic is in black and white, I got lost. All this, but it doesn't really matter because they're treated more as a group than as unique individual characters. And even though they often refer to each other by their color, it's still a black and white comic. So yeah. But I thought it was silly. It was kind of fun. but it kind of ends on a cliffhanger.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of wanted to get to the end of the story. I wanted to wrap up 38 pages. I want to get to the nitty gritty. But it ends with next time, the end of the Penguin Rangers, which I was like, all right. Hopefully, this is a part one of a two-part, or
I don't know how long he's planning to continue it.
Okay. Well, I would like to kind of know what happens at the end.
Well, yeah, of course I would too, but that's what he sent us. So,
so matter of fact, yeah. Well, so, but no, I was hoping for an actual conclusion. I didn't know that this was a series when I went into it, and I would say that, and this is not a criticism that I would say is just about him. I made the same mistakes, or I make the same mistakes in my comics. None of them have really numbered numbers on the cover. This one doesn't either. So you just pick up a comic and you start reading it, and you get to the end, and it's like, okay, I guess I got to get number 2 now. Yeah.
Really, didn't you have any numbers on your series that you were doing?
Not on Mindgator, not on Yakai, nothing. And they were conceived as series works, but I still did not put numbers on. Actually, no, wait, sorry. I lie. On Yakai, there's numbers.
Okay.
It says number 1 and number 2 with a little circle, but for Mindgator, I didn't. And people sometimes complain about that, and I see a lot of customer confusion when they see multiple books on a table with the same title. They don't know which one to go for. So just in that sense, same problem here. If it says number 1, then I know there's a number 2. But if it doesn't say number 1, then I assume this is it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, apparently it is number 1. Or how do I know? There might have been something before this, but it doesn't feel like it at the beginning.
It does say next. Oh, well, yeah, this could be number 2, you mean?
Right. But I guess it feels like it. I mean, if it could be, what do I want to say? If it's not the first in the series, then the previous arc must have ended, and this is a new story, I guess. Because at the beginning, they're just headed for the launch pad to go to Pluto. They're not in some crisis situation.
Yeah, yeah. Still, the color on the cover was fine. I thought it worked. The color in the inside front cover was also fine. I am having a little bit of issue with the black and white for the reasons that I mentioned, but kind of looking at it again, it has a lot of gray tones on it. A lot of gray tones. Mm-hmm. It kind of makes me wonder why they couldn't just color. Maybe the printing black and white is obviously cheaper.
Yeah.
But if we're doing PDFs and digital works, then just throw some color, especially because it's a color. They're color-centric characters.
Yeah.
I just want that extra little bit, and maybe that's the joke, but for me, the joke kind of morphs into confusion later. So, yeah.
Yeah, I guess I sort of forgot to even think about them as being in color. They were just, they kind of called each other red and blue and whatever, but I sort of forgot to make distinctions between them even, because, like as you said, they mostly kind of function as a group. And it's not like red goes off and does his own thing, or we have to know which character is which, because, in order to follow the story. I didn't think it made that much of a difference. In fact, I didn't even really notice that their eyepieces were different. But yeah, they are completely different shapes.
Yeah. But I love how they have this bit of an adventure settling the fight between the space tofu and the space bunnies. And then the last panel is like, time to go. It's like Red said, things are different in space. Yeah. And then next page, welcome to Pluto. Okay, that storyline is done. But I kind of wonder why it was there. But it was kind of humorous. But I kind of want them to come back and have a little bit more to do with it. I mean, the universe that they're painting here is actually quite crazy. And if all of them are constantly involving with each other, that makes for a very crazy, dynamic, somewhat Spider-Haggish comic, which I'm still waiting for the conclusion of.
Yeah. But yeah, and then after that page turn, welcome to Pluto, and then someone else comments, that didn't take very long.
Yeah. Yeah. Very true.
So yeah, let's move on. And it's the opposite of the other comic that we talked about. Just no wasted space there.
Yeah. But actually, comparing to the other comic, this one does know how to tell a story and understands the difference between a close-up, a medium shot, and a far shot. And although it has a few challenges with color, it does keep its narrative straight and doesn't lose the reader for some grandiose panel production. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I enjoyed this a bit. But like I said, I'd like to see number 2 or whatever one is next.
Yes. Yeah, the follow-up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you'd like us to critique your comic, send a PDF or a link to mail@deconstructingcomics.com, and we'll read at least 30 pages and then talk about it on the show. So till next time, this is Tim.
And Mulele.
And thanks for listening to Critiquing Comics. Get links to both comics in the show notes at deconstructingcomics.com. Mulele is on Twitter at Mulele Redux. I'm at Decon Comics. In 2 weeks, we'll be critiquing a couple of comics from our friends at Big Ugly Robot. See you then.